Welcome to Lawyers in the House with Motley. Wish you had a lawyer in the family? Now you do. Here's your host, Veronica Waters.
Welcome to the premiere episode of Lawyers in the House on WSB. I'm your host, Veronica Waters. Who doesn't want their own in-house attorney? Who hasn't wished they had a lawyer in the family? Somebody you could talk to anytime you had a question, anytime you had a concern. Well, now you have one. And not one, but many, because each week, right here, the fabulous attorneys at Montlick will be here to listen to you, to answer your questions, and to pull back the curtain on all things legal. Each week, we're going to have different lawyers coming in and out. We're going to have different topics, different perspectives, different ideas on how the law can help you. But every week, no matter what, one thing is going to be the same. We are going to be welcoming you to chime in on our conversation. What do you want to know? What do you need to find out? We'll want to hear from you. So email the show at lawyersinthehouse@montlick.com. You can even tweet us your questions or find us on Facebook at Montlick Law. We got you. For our housewarming show, come on in. We have got a little introduction today to the field of personal injury law. Going to do a little primer on it, separate fact from fiction, find out what personal injury lawyers really do and how they do it. And to do that, we've got a heavy-hitting lineup in the house for you. Let's introduce our team we have today to talk about this. First up, we've got Alyssa White. Alyssa has been a Montlick injury attorney since 2013. Her reputation for kindness and professionalism precedes her. She is a former college athlete, current small group leader at church, mother of dogs and boys. Alyssa, thank you so much for being here. Jason Saltzman was admitted to the bar in 2012 and became a Montlick attorney the same year. And yet his ties to Montlick go way, way back. And we're going to dig into that a little bit more. People who know him call him an aggressive attorney for his clients with a kind heart for them as well. He also calls himself a barbecue master, I understand. I don't know if we're going to get to that this time. And our third heavy hitter had her name on the firm wall before she ever set foot in law school. She is Nikki Montlick with Montlick, and she's got her finger on the pulse of Montlick's many community initiatives. And she's been doing that since she was a little girl. I believe her title was Director of Community Engagement and All Things Fabulous last time I checked. Or maybe I'm making that up. But it's all true. And she is family at Montlick. We're going to talk to her about that later in the show. Nikki, Alyssa, Jason, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
So let's start with Alyssa. I've got to know how much of what we hear about personal injury law is true, and what's one thing that you think people believe about personal injury law that couldn't be farther from the truth?
Well, probably the number one thing that I wish people knew up front was just, it's not a quick money grab. We are here to help you and help you through the process. It's often a very challenging time for someone after they've been in an accident. And really, we want to show people that it's a long process and we help guide them every step of the way.
So I think you're right. A lot of us see these really big headlines about the dollar figures that people can get. But I know there's more to what you're doing out there than just getting somebody a big check.
Right. And a lot of times people just don't even know where to start. And they think that the insurance company that calls them right away is on their side and wants to help them. And that is a dirty trap that the insurance companies set for people. And so we always encourage people to call us as soon as possible after an accident so we can explain the process so that they know what to expect as things start coming up in the case and in the upcoming days right after an accident.
So what's the biggest mistake people make then? Like say they've been in an accident on the roads.
The biggest mistake people make is telling the insurance company everything that happened and how they're feeling right after the accident. Because really, anything you tell the insurance company, whether you think they're helping you or not, they're going to use it later against you.
And Jason, what is on everybody's mind after something like that? You're getting people in often what are really traumatic moments.
You have all kinds of things going on. I mean, aside from the property damage, you'll also have people who are so injured that they can't get back to work. They've got staggering medical expenses that they have to deal with. Many of our clients don't even have health insurance. So they have issues as far as going to the doctor and where they don't know where they can get treatment. On top of that, some other people have really disabling injuries where in really serious circumstances, people can't even hold their kid. They can't do things at home.
That's amazing. Alyssa, I know that you had your own rear ender on the roads some time back. Did you have to hire a lawyer?
Well, so in my situation, I was rear-ended, and luckily my children were not in the car, but I still had to deal with their car seats needing replaced, getting a rental car, juggling me going to medical appointments, and still trying to take care of everything that my kids needed to be picked up from school and taken to events. So even though I handle my case myself, I handle cases for people every single day, and I would always encourage people to call as soon as they're in an accident so we can get them on the right track.
But I would think that, what if it's not a huge accident? Maybe it was just a tiny little fender bender, and I'm thinking this isn't worth anybody's time. My headache's going to go away, whatever.
Even the smallest accidents can cause big injuries. And one of the common tactics that an insurance company will use is exactly what you just said, Veronica, is it wasn't a big, bad accident. How could you possibly be hurt? But let me tell you, it's possible. And people suffer severe injuries even when it doesn't seem that bad right away because your adrenaline is going and you're like, go, 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 go. And then you wake up 3 days after the accident with a very sore back or neck, and you really do need medical attention.
What's the one thing that I need to do? And by the way, I know surfingaroundmontlick.com, I saw that there's this checklist of what you should do, but what do you advise folks to do, like first thing?
First thing is stop when that accident happens and then call the police. We have to have a record of the accident so that you can get the other driver's insurance information and so that the police can verify how the accident happened and have all the important information put in a record.
Jason, when I think about maybe an insurance payout or something, I'm sort of a kind-hearted person, and I've heard other people say too, I would feel bad about like trying to bring a case against somebody. I might put them in bankruptcy or something, or I might hurt this small business or something. Is that something that I really need to worry about? Is that fact, fiction?
I'd say mostly fiction. I mean, if you have an auto accident, generally there's not going to be any profitability in going after someone who has no money or has no auto insurance. Putting a person into bankruptcy doesn't help get you compensated for your injuries. Generally, these cases, you are making a claim against that individual, but it's a claim that is covered by an insurance company or your own uninsured motorist coverage as well. Okay,
so they're not like having to go into their checkbook for me, the actual person.
No.
Okay.
Generally not.
Okay, that's good to know. And it's probably maybe do you hear clients worrying about that? It seems like probably a sigh of relief too, to know I can be taken care of, and I'm not really going to hurt somebody else in the process. All right. All right, we're getting the truth separated from the myth a little bit. I want to go and introduce you to Nikki Montlick with Montlick Injury Attorneys. And Nikki has been, like I said, tied to the firm in a big family way for a long time. So, Nikki, tell me a little bit about, though, your journey to Montlick.
Well, Veronica, I always knew that I wanted to go into the family business. I feel like I grew up at Montlick. I mean, my family threw my sister a baby shower in the office we were just talking about yesterday with Jason. But one thing that really solidified my decision to go into the Montlick practice was when I was interning as a teenager. I came in, and one of the things they had me do was observe and shadow the attorneys. And I literally would sit with Alyssa and Jason and some of our other exceptional attorneys, and I would listen to how they interacted with clients and watch them. And I was blown away, Veronica. They treated them with so much patience and thoughtfulness and empathy, and they really took the time to make sure that they felt heard and acknowledged. And I thought to myself that if I was ever in an accident, which is often some of the most painful days of your life, you're in pain, you're suffering, you're dealing with so many different things going on in your life, that's how I would want someone to treat me, with that empathy and that thoughtfulness and respect. So that, even though I hadn't had much other experiences to compare it to at the time, I thought, wow, this is really special, that level of client service. And I thought, I want to work for for a firm like this when I become an attorney, but it was more than that. I want to work for Montlick.
Wow. That's really powerful. And it reminds me of something that I talked to Jason about, because Jason, I don't think I'm exaggerating a lot when I say that you were running through the halls of Montlick in diapers. Am I exaggerating at all?
No, not really. I mean, Nikki just brought up, I was at her mother's baby shower for Nikki's little sister when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I remember it vividly. And
Good cake.
Well, that part I don't remember. But I was always, my father has been an attorney at Montlick for over, I'd say 34 years now. And I was in the office periodically growing up. And when I went to college, I started working as a legal assistant there before going to law school. And
Did it feel like a calling to be there? I mean, a lot of kids, let's be honest, a lot of kids don't know what they want to do for a living, or they might feel pressure to be in the family business. Nikki didn't feel that. Did you feel anything? Your dad had been there almost since the beginning.
Yes, it was always a call. I mean, I always wanted to help people. And as I went into college and decided I wanted to be a lawyer, I knew that I wanted to represent individuals and not companies. And ultimately, Montlick seemed like for me, it felt like fate to me. It felt like I was always going to be a part of it. I felt a part of Montlick from a very young age.
Can you think of a case that really brought home your passion for helping people and giving people that kind of empathy and with that ethical representation?
Yes, in fact, one of the earlier cases that had a huge, profound impact on me was a woman who was hit by a vehicle while crossing the street, and she was killed, unfortunately. And it was a difficult case because the driver was disputing liability, and we had to go through a lot of accident reconstruction, and the family was very nice people. This woman had even been honored by City of Atlanta officials at her funeral. Ultimately, we ended up recovering for her family a very large amount of compensation, and we were able to hold the driver and their company accountable.
Still, though, a lot of people think about those checks, but it's really about more than the money. A lot of people, I'm sure, are like, the money doesn't mean that much in the broad scheme of things.
Yes, and what I say to people is that there's no amount of money that can actually compensate you for what you've been through. But in the American judicial system, you have a civil process, and really the only way the law allows you to get justice for what happened is some type of monetary compensation. And often clients will feel, so I've had clients call me up and say, listen, it wasn't even about the money for me. It was about them being held accountable.
Yeah, and that's how you help. Coming up, I'm going to talk to my friends here about some of the many ways that Montlick gives back to the community. You're listening to Lawyers in the House on WSB. Welcome back to Lawyers in the House on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters here with Montlick Injury attorneys Jason Saltzman, Alyssa White, and the next generation of Montlick, Nikki Montlick. And Nikki Montlick's been helping people inside and outside of the community for decades now. I got to ask you to tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, when David Montlick founded Montlick & Associates in 1984, he had two goals in mind. He wanted to provide exceptional client service, unlike anything he had experienced before, and he wanted to give back to the community in a really meaningful way. And the way that we do that is through our public service programs, which we have. You can go into our website, montlick.com, where we have information about all of our public service programs and all of the events going on. We have our Tribute to the Troops program, which we have a subset of different things that we do, but we just finished our Most Deserving Military Family Contest, where we awarded a free trip to a military family to a destination of their choice anywhere in the continental U.S. The finalists also have won a variety of prizes over time: hotel accommodations, a weekend trip. We've given out, tickets to Six Flags. So just a nice way.
Tickets to Six Flags? Sorry.
Just a nice way for them to take time away and spend time with their family and with their kids and have a nice break.
It seems like such a really touching thing, too. I mean, I can't imagine all of the stories that you guys have to pour through to come up with even 5 finalists. How tough that must be.
Yeah, we actually just finished and are soon to announce the winner from last year's competition, but there were so many incredible stories and deserving families.
Okay, so Jason, you are the other Montlake legacy in the room. And when we were chatting the other day, I was really struck by something that you told me about this common thread that you saw woven through all of the attorneys as you were just a young boy kind of hanging around Montlake.
Yes, I always felt that the firm presented itself in a very professional way that distinguished itself in the Georgia community. We currently have an initiative right now called I Ride Safe, but an earlier version of that was called Help Keep Kids Safe, which was meant to protect children from being involved in pedestrian or auto accidents. And I remember wearing those T-shirts as a kid, in first grade even. And
we need photos. I need photo proof.
I've been looking for one. But as I grew older and I began working at the firm as a young adult, I was always so impressed at how our clients had access to their attorneys whenever they wanted. There wasn't a non-lawyer case manager that was essentially their main point of contact. If they wanted to speak to their attorneys, they were able to do so. And that's the way we do it at the firm. Every case has an actual attorney on it, and all of the clients are able to access their attorneys.
I love it. This is really cool. We're getting to know a little bit about personal injury law and how those folks can help you, and breaking down the myths versus the truths about the entire field. And I'm going to top off my coffee right quick. And that reminds me of something I really have to ask you guys about, one of these big headline grabbing cases about that McDonald's hot coffee. So we're going to get to that in just a little bit. Plus a little something that we're going to have for you every single week. I'm not going to give it away, a little secret there. You're listening to Lawyers in the House on 95.5 and AM 750 WSB. Welcome back to our house. This is Lawyers in the House on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters here with Nikki Montlake, Alyssa White, Jason Saltzman, and we had a stupendous first half of the show. You're probably kicking yourself if you missed it, but don't worry. We've got a way for you to catch up on all the good stuff that you missed. Check us out on YouTube or any place you find the hottest podcast. You can also find us on demand at WSBradio.com. Of course, don't forget, you can always email us your questions for the show at lawyersinthehouse@montlake.com. We want to hear from you. If you go to YouTube, you can see our smiling faces, and who doesn't want to see these bright, shiny faces? All right, gang. So I talked earlier about the fact that I wanted to talk about something that I heard of way back in the day, and I really think it was my personal introduction, so to speak, to personal injury law. I don't think I had ever heard about that before, and it was this big headline grabbing case about the McDonald's hot coffee case. And, you know, Alyssa, you had said earlier that a lot of people think it's like a big money grab. And I know that, Jason, we heard about big numbers in that case. So what was real in that case? What was not? What's the fact? What's the fiction?
Yes, I think you're referring to the Liebeck v. McDonald's case that happened in the 1990s, which was heavily publicized and politicized, really on both sides of the aisle. There was a Seinfeld episode that even made fun of it.
It was Jackie Childs.
Yes.
He was like, it's outrageous. It's egregious. Yeah.
Yes, and really what the story was a woman had gotten a cup of coffee. She was with a family relative. I guess she was in the passenger seat of her car. They stopped in the parking lot of the McDonald's to get situated, and she put the coffee between her legs to kind of lift the lid off, I would think, to put cream and sugar in it or something. And the coffee spilled on her, and she ended up sustaining 4th-degree burns in her groin area, needed skin grafting surgery. And what was amazing about that case that the news did not report was that all she was asking for initially was for McDonald's to pay her medical bills, which were around $20,000. But ultimately, it went to trial. They ended up being able to prove that McDonald's was heating their coffee between 180 to 190 degrees, and on top of that, that particular location had issues before. So the jury essentially awarded her a $2.7 million verdict, which is what caused the headlines. But the judge set that verdict aside to under $1 million. I think it was around $600,000 or so, approximately. and then they ended up settling out of court for an undisclosed amount.
So McDonald's was just kind of duking it out with her and saying, no, we're not going to give you anything?
Essentially, yeah.
How often do cases go to trial? I watch listen, I'm not shy about telling you that a lot of what I see about personal injury comes from TV and the movies, right? And does anybody watch Goliath? Goliath on, okay, what is, you guys, okay, just quick primer from about Goliath. It's a show on Amazon Prime. It's Billy Bob Thornton. He plays this lawyer called Billy McBride. And Billy McBride is always in these, what turn out to be these big personal injury cases. And it's like him and another lawyer and a woman who kind of acts as a PI sort of in her spare time. And the three of them take on these big old cases, and then they go in the courtroom and boom, they win these massive verdicts. But does everything always go to trial like that, Jason?
No, I think it's actually a very small percentage. I think 90-something% of cases settle before trial. And really, it's, I mean, I'm not going to say that there's no trial with some type of flair that you see on Hollywood TV and all that kind of stuff, but they are a lot rarer than people believe they are.
So is it... Here's something that I have always kind of thought too. If I do need a personal injury lawyer, it's going to take a lot of time out of my life. I'm going to have to show up to court a lot. I'm going to have to do a lot of running around, blah, blah, blah.
No, generally not. Usually your attorney's going to try to negotiate the claim first, and often many cases can be resolved with insurance companies before it even gets to litigation, which is the road to trial.
Alyssa, you were not scalded by hot coffee, gratefully, but you did have your own rear ender. Not a horrific accident, but it had to be scary nonetheless.
Yeah, it's scary and stressful. And just, as a working mom of 2 little boys, it's a huge hassle on your life. And I think one of the services and something that we pride ourselves in is really helping our client navigate the process. So when somebody calls, I can say, listen, I've been there. I know that you have to go pick up your kid by 4 o'clock every day. And I understand, but we also want to make sure they understand the importance of getting medical care because this time isn't going to happen again. So if you're hurting and in pain and injured from an accident, you've got to get the medical care so that you're well. We also obviously need the documentation for our case to be able to build the case and prove to the insurance company what the injuries are. But we also want our clients to be well. And a lot of times, if they don't have health insurance, especially, whenever the car accident happens, that's their one opportunity to get the medical treatment that they need. And so that's something that we really take time to explain to our clients whenever they call in.
But that's like a lot of, Jason, I think you were going to say something, but I was just thinking, as she said that, who has time for all of that? I mean,
the thing about these accidents is for many people, it completely stops their life from moving forward. I mean, they have no choice but to get medical care. And to piggyback on what Alyssa was saying, I mean, you do have a lot of people without health insurance, but that doesn't mean that they're dead in the water. I mean, there are ways to get medical treatment from doctors who are willing to treat them and get paid later, and they'll usually do so by contractual agreement.
You talk about doctors too. I think that's important, but I've heard this phrase called running cases. What is that? Is that something that personal injury lawyers do?
They're not supposed to.
Oh, okay. What does that mean?
Essentially, running cases is also the actual name for it is barratry. Georgia's kind of cracked down on it in recent years. It has always been considered unethical and illegal. So not only is it an unethical type of conduct for an attorney where they can get disciplined for it, but it's also something in which they can get criminally charged. But not only lawyers do it. There are some doctors out there that will, there are some doctors and lawyers out there who will contact people who they know have been involved in an accident and try to solicit them to hire them.
So that's what running cases is, and that's where the myth of the ambulance chaser comes in, Alyssa.
Yes, exactly. So if you're in an accident and somebody calls you, that's a huge red flag. Because lawyers, according to the State Bar of Georgia and the rules that we are governed by, we cannot solicit clients. So if somebody calls you and says, hey, I know a doctor that will see you after this accident, that's a huge, huge, huge red flag. It's unethical. It's criminal behavior. And, we see it a lot. We see people who call our firm thinking they've even hired us. And
Whoa.
people impersonate our firm, and Yeah, I mean,
Shocking.
it happens. People call and say, we hired you at the hospital. And we say, we have no idea who you are. And so people just have to be, ready for these things. And you're going through so much. You're at the ER, you're on the side of the road stranded, and you're like, you think anybody would be helpful for you, but really there's a lot of scams that go on, and there's a lot of pretty shady tactics that happen.
You're not necessarily thinking somebody slipping you a business card is a bad thing, right? You're just like,
Right.
oh, somebody's trying to help me out, and it turns out it's the opposite.
Lawyers cannot solicit business. And so, we always encourage people to call us right away so we can get a jump start on it and explain all of these things to our clients from the beginning so there's not confusion later.
And why would you want to hire an attorney who is willing to break the law to try to retain you as a
Right.
client?
And an attorney-
if you got a lawyer that's willing to do something like that that's illegal, then that lawyer's probably not going to treat you in an ethical way either.
Nikki, what were you going to say?
Yeah, an attorney should never approach you at the scene of an accident or at the hospital. That's a red flag, and you should run if that happens.
Run far away. And Alyssa and Jason, if somebody did want to talk to you about a case or something, if they wanted to just get in touch with you and maybe run a couple questions by you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so simply call 1-800-LAW-NEED. And something really special about our firm is when you call for that consultation, you get to talk to me or Jason or another attorney at our firm, and we're going to go through your case and evaluate it and tell you what to expect if we can help you. And if we can't help you, we'll tell you why. And I think that's really something valuable about our firm and how we treat clients is we're not going to take your case and then you find out a year from now that you actually don't have a case. You are going to get a very detailed attorney consultation when you call our firm, and that's something very special about us.
Yeah, you call that number and an actual attorney is on the other end, Jason.
Not an intake specialist, non-attorney. It will be an attorney who speaks with you. Every person who calls our firm, whether they have a case or not, gets a free consultation with an actual lawyer.
I love that. So we've gotten into some of the truth and the myth about personal injury law and the way that you guys help folks. But Nikki, we talked earlier, again, you were mentioning how Montlick is not just helping folks with cases, but trying to maybe help prevent things along the way. Give me a little idea of some of the things that Montlick's been doing to help folks out there on the roads.
Well, we have our public service program, I Ride Safe, and Help Keep Kids Safe, which we've been doing since the 90s, which basically we're trying to facilitate events and programs to help educate not only adults, but teen drivers and children about safe driving practices on the roads. And we also have an extensive amount of material on our website that is informative. You just go to montlick.com and you can download a safe driving checklist, which will help you before you go on a road trip. You should read it over and just review some safe driving practices.
When you're talking to kids, and anybody can chime in on this one, we're doing stories all the time about teen drivers and safety and Hands-Free Georgia, another thing I know Montlick is big on. But do teens, especially, do young drivers really kind of hear that? Or are they just like, phew, it's over my head. Yeah, whatever. Whatever, old dude,
I've helped with this in the past few years. Our firm worked with a nonprofit, and we did what we call the Teen Driver Academy. And we spoke with middle schoolers and high schoolers and would do presentations on the dangers of unsafe driving, drinking while driving, doing drugs. A lot of times, I feel like the younger kids, they're not old enough to drive yet, so sometimes it's kind of harder to reach them. But it really helps a lot when their parents are in the room, because a lot of times their parents ask really good questions and important things that maybe their children wouldn't ask, but that are important to hear. Mm-hmm. And there really are so many stories of children who have had their lives basically irreparably altered because of severe accidents.
Nikki, and since you've been doing this since you were a kid, I would imagine that you kind of have a hand in some of the messaging to make sure that kids are really hearing what you guys are trying to say.
I think to an extent, repetition really helps. I think hearing it over and over, that you don't text and drive. Hands-Free Georgia Law has been monumental in helping people put down their phones and not be, they say I don't know the exact statistic, but the average teenager isn't even texting while driving. They're looking at TikToks. They're using other apps on their phone, which is crazy, and it's scary and ludicrous to think about. But I think informing people again and again and stressing the importance of eyes on the road, and you just need to continually check in with yourself and make sure you're being aware while you're driving.
It is crazy sometimes the stuff I've seen on the roads. I've seen people reading a magazine, typing an email, maybe doing something on their phone. I can't tell you how many times I've beeped at a light because somebody clearly was looking at a phone or something and not going forward. And Jason, tell me just right quick you had this crazy, horrible accident, but what was the person doing at the time?
Huh?
They were adjusting their steering wheel.
Oh, shoot. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay.
That.
No, you said you had this act crazy.
No, not you. Not your accident. It was a case or something that came through? Or
I worked on a case at the firm in which a person, in which the accident was caused because the driver was adjusting their steering wheel.
Amazing.
And it was a horrifying accident. I mean, the injuries were catastrophic. There were deaths as well.
It's amazing the things that people will do behind the wheel of a car, but at least now I know I can find a good lawyer to help me out should somebody be on TikTok and run into me. Okay, coming up, we've got one more special thing for you that you are not going to want to miss. And again, I'm not going to give it all away. You're just going to have to stick with us. This is Lawyers in the House on WSB. Welcome back to our house. It's Lawyers in the House on WSB, and you are in our house with a trio of some of Montlick Law's heaviest of the heavy hitters. We're talking to Nikki Montlick and Jason Saltzman and Alyssa White, and we are here. Finally, I promised you something, a little nugget you can take home with you that's going to make your life a little bit easier or the life of somebody that you love. So we're here with Montlick's closing argument. Jason, Alyssa, take it away.
Number one closing argument for today is make sure you have uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, often referred to as UM coverage. This is such a valuable insurance. It's not expensive to add to your policy, and most people don't have it because they just call up their insurance company and say, I want Georgia limits or whatever Georgia requires. Well, most insurance companies will only sell just the basic $25,000 per person, $50,000 per occurrence liability coverage that the state requires. But what's so important, and most people don't know, is that you need underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage, again, often called UM, because if it's a hit and run accident and you don't know who hit you, or the driver that does hit you didn't pay their insurance premium that month, you are out of luck if you don't have this coverage. It's so, so, so valuable. We really want everyone to know this.
Jason, does it really make that big of a difference?
Huge. We can't stress enough how important it is. I think it was, on average, I think it's 12% over the years, approximately, that in Georgia that drivers are uninsured. I had a case a few years back where a young guy was driving down a highway and he was hit by someone. We'll never know who it was. It was a John Doe hit and run driver, and it caused his car to flip, and he ended up requiring several surgeries. He had multiple broken bones, hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills. And this guy thought that he had no case. He called me up just to get some advice on how to handle it. And I said to him, do you live with any family members who own a car? And he happened to live with his parents, and they had a very large uninsured motorist policy that had hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we were able to recover that for him. He couldn't believe it. I mean, it was one of these kind of things where had he not lived with his family, he wouldn't have had the coverage. And that's another thing, by the way. If you live with a family member who has auto insurance, you are covered under that policy by virtue of living with that person, so long as they are a family member and you live in their home.
Another thing that's super important too, and that people don't understand, is if the driver that hits you has insurance, sometimes they don't have enough insurance. So if you go to the ER, you might have a $30,000 or $40,000 bill by the time you're done there. And if the person that hit you only has a Georgia minimum, you're out of luck unless you have this additional underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage. Super important.
That's got to feel so gratifying to be able to help somebody in a situation like that. So, final word to Nikki Montlick. Montlick is always out there helping folks. If folks want to know a little bit more about what Montlick's up to these days, what's the best way they can find out?
You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok. Our handle is @MontlickLaw. You can also add us on LinkedIn. Facebook, or you can go to mottlick.com, where you can sign up for our free email blast where we have family safety tips and product recalls, lots of different interesting information that you're going to want to know about. You can sign up on mottlick.com.
All right. Thank you so much. That is our show for the week. Thanks for coming to our housewarming on Lawyers in the House. And thank you so much, Jason, Alyssa, Nikki, for sharing some heart and soul with us this week.
Thank you,
We will
Veronica.
see you
Thank you.
next time. And I'm Veronica Waters. This is Lawyers in the House on WSB.